Hello.
Lovely. Can you hear the clock?
It's fantastic. It's like joining a party.
I know, right? This is my favorite bit. Ready? The ending.
Very good. It's a perfect 30 seconds. You'll have to explain, Charlie, why you played it. Otherwise, nobody will understand.
Well, I did say at the beginning that I wanted to play it to you because now, were you director or the producer of Countdown?
No, I was the series producer on Countdown, which for your American listeners and viewers will not know, but it's a sort of a good old chestnut of a TV show that is a game show, but very, very well known, has been on air for decades and decades and decades, and I made that really quite a long time ago. And they have a guessing round, and you have 30 seconds to guess the answer, and that is the music that we play. So thank you for the music.
You're welcome. It was part of my childhood because Countdown was always on, and I just love the at the end. Anyway, I just thought it'd be fun to play it for you today. But I'm so excited to have you here, and you have a little.
Lovely to be with you.
It's so exciting, and you have a little introduction. More music. Are you ready? Here we go.
Always ready for music.
Here we go. A little bit of Fifth Harmony and Boss, because this boss lady was the most recent former CEO of BAFTA Los Angeles for 4 years and newly honored with an OBE from the Queen, and has been an incredible leader all her life, using grit and generosity to rise to the top. Starting out in the male-dominated advertising space, she spent 27 years in senior positions in television in both channel management and production, with hugely popular shows like MasterChef, Countdown, Through the Keyhole with David Frost, Parkinson, and This Morning for ITV. Once setting her sights on becoming a doctor, Chantal's passion for helping others with her charity and philanthropic work saw her blaze a trail and become a highly respected leader in the entertainment industry. And it is my honor and my privilege to welcome the wonderful Chantal Rickards, OBE, to the show.
Bless you, Charlie. I'm not going to live up to the billing, can I tell you? I definitely don't live up to the billing, but thank you anyway.
Oh my gosh, Chantal. I so look up to you because you've had this most amazing career. You've been a female leader in like a male predominant world all of your life. What was that like, and what attributes do you think contribute to being a great female leader that you are?
Well, good question. God, we're starting with some tough questions.
Right out the gate.
What's good about well, I think women generally are very good at collaboration. So
yes.
That having had a career in television particularly, that sort of suited my skills of being a collaborator, because I really like working with lots of people and bringing everybody to the same space. I would never have been any good as a writer sitting in his room on his own all day long, or I couldn't have done a job that wasn't surrounded by other people.
Yes, and you love people. Yeah. You're such a good people person. You bring people together.
Yeah, I think probably women are better at that than men. I could be wrong. Don't want to make this terribly sexist, but I think that's one of the reasons. And then I think the other, I think I always took good humor into meetings. I always wanted to really enjoy myself. Yeah. So there was rarely a bad day. I mean, there were a few bad days, but on those bad days, I tried not to let it show. So television is such a fun industry that it's very difficult to have a bad day, actually, because you're just enjoying yourself all the time. And particularly the bit of television that I came from, which was the entertainment side of television, everybody's up for it. Everybody's having a laugh all the time. You're working with brilliant script writers who are always looking for wonderful, punchlines for jokes and things. And actually, it just puts you in a great mood. So I've been lucky.
How great is that, to go to work every day and just know that you're going to have a great time? I can't imagine you in a meeting losing your mind and getting angry. Do you think that's partly because of your upbringing and your wonderful family unit that you came from?
Well, that's also a good question. For those that don't know, and not many people will know, I'm one of 6 kids.
Amazing.
So I'm number 5, and I think we got noisier the further down the register. But just to sort of, get yourself heard, you had to be pretty noisy. Yeah. So I grew up surrounded by loads of people, and that's the environment I've tried to cultivate for the rest of my life, really. I mean, I just love, I get off on people. I just love that that noise and freneticism, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice for me.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased I wasn't an only child.
Oh, I can't imagine you as an only child. Do you miss, I know you've been in LA for 4 years being the CEO of BAFTA. That must have been an incredible chance to, when we loved having you here and we miss you terribly.
Oh, bless you.
But what was that like being here in LA, being CEO of such an incredible, you know, BAFTA is like...
Well, indeed. I mean, BAFTA, again, for those that don't know, BAFTA is the British Academy of Film and Television.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the sort of the British Oscars, if you like, but with a lot of class, I would say. Not that the Oscars aren't classy, but I think the BAFTAs are just slightly classier.
Yes.
And it was lovely to come over to America to run the organization. I was offered a 2-year contract, which I accepted, and I eventually came home just over a year ago, after nearly 5 years. So I was actually in post for about 4 years and 8 months. I got very homesick towards the end, and I really wanted to be back in the UK. And so I did a bit of commuting in the last 6 months, really so that I could start getting my head back into my British life. And also my eldest child was finishing at university just during that period. And so I wanted to be in England a little bit more at that stage.
Wow.
So I stayed until the sort of the beginning of the awards season, and I left at the end of October, the Christmas before last. Then had some holiday in the US, which I had been wanting to do for a while, and then finally got back to London just before Christmas, the Christmas before last. So, of course I miss America, and it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was a mistake. I wasn't supposed to be doing that job. I wasn't.
Really?
No, I wasn't an obvious candidate.
So how did it come about then?
Well, it came about, I flew over to the US to a conference that was being put on by Yahoo over on the East Coast in Rhode Island. And I had a couple of very close girlfriends in LA. Trish Kinane, who runs America's Got Talent and American Idol, who was a great girl from Swansea, and another friend, Catherine Mitchell, who was an old friend from the BBC. And I just thought, you know, Rhode Island to LA, it's just down the road. I'll just pop over for the weekend at the end of the conference. I mean, completely insane. So I jumped on a plane in Providence. I landed at LAX, and the 3 girls all went off to Palm Springs for the weekend. And we were sitting around a pool in the sunshine. And one of the girls mentioned that a headhunter was looking for a new head of BAFTA LA. And I said very naively, "What's BAFTA doing in Los Angeles?" And the response was, "Well, you know, there are a lot of members here, and they need somebody to run the charity." And I went, "BAFTA's a charity?" I had absolutely no idea, which is shocking because, you know, I've worked in television virtually all my life, and I should have known that, but I wasn't actually a BAFTA member. I was a member of the Royal Television Society, but not BAFTA. And I didn't really know that it was an arts education charity. Anyway, this conversation around the pool, you know, went from 1 cosmopolitan to 2 cosmopolitans to 3 cosmopolitans, with a couple of gin and tonics thrown in for good measure. And then by the end of the conversation, one of the girls had said, "Look, I'm going to throw your name to the headhunter." And I said, "Look, this job isn't for me, but I'll certainly put the word out in London," because I think they were really looking for somebody from the UK to take on the role to run BAFTA. It had been run very successfully, but by an American accountant, a production accountant by training. And he was an American guy, but it didn't feel as though it had a big British figurehead. And I think what they wanted was somebody from Britain who'd established themselves in the British film and television career. And so one thing led to another, and they asked me to go over for an interview. And I thought, it's a long way for 24 hours, but thought, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Why not?
I was looking forward to another weekend in Palm Springs. I thought, oh, well, this is great. I'll go back to see my girlfriends again. And I had a very scary interview. There were 18 members on the BAFTA board of directors, and everybody, all 18 of them, turned up to my interview. I had a 30-minute presentation and then a 30-minute Q&A session. I was dead by that stage because I had only been in the country since the previous night.
Oh
and
my
I drove
gosh.
back to LAX. I fell asleep in the departure lounge. Somebody had to wake me up. And when I woke up, there was a text message from BAFTA. And I knew that they were going to offer me the job. I thought they wouldn't have texted me on the same evening if it wasn't to say, would you like the job? So I got on the plane and landed in London the following morning. And the phone was ringing as I turned it on, and it was BAFTA saying, we'd love you to take the job. So it was all an accident. It was a big, big mistake, but it was a fun mistake.
What a great mistake for us all here to have had you here, because I feel like you really put BAFTA on the map in those 5 years that you were here. I mean, all the events that you did, all the BAFTA tea parties, it just seemed to come alive when you were here in the last 5 years. And I loved doing the Burns night that you and Rossi and Danielle and I did for BAFTA at the Fairmont in Santa Monica. Just doing things like that with you was so fabulous. You really...
Well, we will do that again. I mean, as you know, we couldn't do Burns Night this year.
Yes.
But I will definitely come over again next year, and we shall do it again. And we've, established a really good fun evening. And, we've got some great Scots who come along, Gerard Butler and Sam Hewen and Lulu we had last year. And so it's a really good, fun bunch of people. And there's quite a lot of whiskey to be drunk as well.
There is. It's a great night, and raising money for BAFTA. It was been really lovely having you here. And what is it like? Because you must have gone to the Oscars, you must have gone to all the award shows.
I did, actually. I was incredibly lucky. I went to the Oscars, I think 3 times, which was jolly nice. I went to the Golden Globes 4 or 5 times. I went to the Emmys 4 or 5 times. I went to some of the other smaller award shows. And most importantly, I was there for the Britannias, which are BAFTA's international honours. They give away 6 honours every year. So it's not a competition as such. There aren't losers in the room. There are only 6 fabulous winners, and they are very much A-list talent. And so because I had a television production background, particularly in entertainment, I was the executive producer of the Britannias, as well as sort of, just being the boss of BAFTA. So it was great that I was able to sort of stretch my creative muscles once a year.
Yeah, how amazing. And for those listening in England and Scotland, they're saying it must have been amazing going to the Oscars. What was that like for you? What was the feeling walking down the red carpet and seeing all the celebrities? And did you meet Brad Pitt? Miss Glorious White is asking.
Oh, desperately, sadly, I did not meet Brad Pitt. I would love to have met Brad Pitt.
Chantal.
But no, I did. I managed to get to George Clooney's house. That was pretty cool.
You got to interview George, didn't you?
I did interview George. I was very lucky to interview George. That was a couple of years ago.
How was that, George Clooney?
It was, he is the most charming man. And actually, I've always said, because I've worked with celebrities all my life, the ones who get to the top are generally the ones who are really nice. And that's because people want to work with them. The ones who are tricky and difficult, they tend not to get, bookings as often, because people know that they're going to be really hard work.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
Often, when I was a showbiz publicist 30 years ago, it was the sort of B/C grade talent that was way more difficult to work with than the big A-listers. I mean, one of the people that I represented 30 years ago was Michael Caine. Well, Michael Caine is just heaven on a stick.
Oh.
You not have a good day with Michael Caine around. And he's as successful as he is because he's unbelievably nice. So I think I've been lucky to work with some really, really cool people actually during my career.
How lovely is that to be able to say, to meet wonderful people like Michael Caine and George Clooney. I mean, it's such an exciting, glamorous life, to do. I know it's hard work as well, but to get to interview them all must be so amazing.
Rather like you're stretching your creative muscles doing these wonderful interviews. I did the same thing for BAFTA. So I would often do the moderating at BAFTA's Q&As. We would do screenings of all the movies that were in competition for that season. And then often the talent would come along, the producers, the directors, and indeed the actors would come along to talk to the BAFTA members. And I would act as that sort of middleman, throwing out some questions and sort of, giving some shape to the interview. And I think actually in my last week, I interviewed Meryl Streep, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro,